Russian delegation present in Turkey for the scheduled negotiations with Ukraine held a press conference rejecting the latest remarks by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. May 15th marks Nakba Day for Palestinians, a day to commemorate the mass dispossession and forced displacement during the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. And several sectors of Colombian society held demonstrations following the rejection of the popular consultation initiative by the Senate. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos. I'm from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. We now begin with the information. The Russian delegation present in Turkey for the scheduled negotiations with Ukraine held a press conference in response to the latest remarks by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. This way, the head of the delegation, Vladimir Medinsky, reaffirmed the authority of the officials appointed for the talks, stressing that they were approved by a presidential decree and possessed all the necessary competencies and authority to conduct the negotiations. Furthermore, Medinsky recalled that talks were a continuation of the 2022 peace process that was interrupted by the Ukrainian side, while highlighting his delegation's willingness to find a sustainable and long-lasting solution to the conflict. For his part, after belittling the Russian delegation upon his arrival in Ankara, the Ukrainian president stated that he would not participate directly in talks, but would send representatives to Istanbul. Delegations and negotiations are set to take place on Friday.
We consider these negotiations as a continuation of the peace process in Istanbul, which unfortunately was interrupted by the Ukrainian side 3 years ago. Our official delegation has been approved by a presidential decree and possesses all the necessary competencies and authority to conduct negotiations. The delegation is set on a constructive course, aiming to find possible solutions and points of convergence. The goal of direct negotiations with the Ukrainian side is, sooner or later, to reach the establishment of a long-term peace by eliminating the fundamental root causes of the conflict.
And we now move on to other topics, as May 15th marks Nakba Day for Palestinians, a day to commemorate the mass dispossession and forced displacement during the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. Palestinians held marches in the occupied West Bank in the city of Ramallah to commemorate the 77th anniversary of the Nakba, or catastrophe, in which an estimated 750,000 Palestinians were expelled from their lands after Israel declared itself an independent state in their territory. Palestinian flags and keys symbolize the lost homes and the permanent desire and struggle for their return. This year, the commemoration takes place amid the ongoing genocide in Gaza that killed over 50,000 as Israel continues to force displacements in all the enclave and its aid blockade and ongoing attacks.
Every day, we must speak to our children about our country, about what our ancestors lived through and what exactly happened to them. This is our duty. If we stop talking about the issue, it will fade away. We are firmly committed to our cause, the refugee cause, and we certainly still hope for our return.
I came here to make a solidarity.
I came here to make a solidarity. 77 years of suffering. We still have suffering. Our priority now is to stop the genocide, to stop the aggressive settlers, to stop the aggression against our people in the Gaza Strip. We are here, we are steadfast. We remain here and we will stay in this land because we believe that Victory Day.
In this context, the Venezuelan government expressed its solidarity to the Palestinian people on this 77th anniversary of the Nakba. Through an official statement, the government stated that Venezuela, in firm adherence to the principles of international law, justice, and self-determination of peoples, joins today in deep solidarity with the brotherly people of Palestine as they commemorate the 77th anniversary of the Nakba, a catastrophe that marked the beginning of the systematic dispossession, forced exile, and continued suffering of millions of Palestinians uprooted from their ancestral land. In the communique, they stated that 77 years ago, the colonial ambition of Israeli Zionism gave way to a massive, planned and violent expulsion of the Palestinian population. That historic crime has not ceased. Its tragic consequences persist to this day, today aggravated by the ongoing genocide brutally executed by the Nazi regime of Israel and its chief perpetrator, the war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu. It goes on to warn that the Nakba is not a memory of the past. It is an open wound that bleeds with every act of aggression, with every murdered child, with every destroyed home, with every Palestinian life cut short by the machinery of war, apartheid, and occupation of the State of Israel. In its closing remarks, the statement assured that the people and the government of Venezuela, headed by President Nicolás Maduro Moros, embrace with unwavering brotherhood and commitment the brave and dignified Palestinian people. Their cause is our cause. Their heroic resistance is a source of inspiration for the free peoples of the world, and their legitimate yearning for justice, peace, and sovereignty is a cry that we make our own, with the conviction that sooner rather than later, freedom and dignity will flourish forever in the sacred land of Palestine, closing by stating, "Long live free and sovereign Palestine." Palestinian civil defense recorded 94 deaths as a result of an overnight Israeli strikes across the Gaza Strip. The entity further detailed that occupation forces dropped bombs in Khan Yunis city and southern Gaza, which claimed over 60 lives, including journalist Hassan Samour and his 11 family members. Moreover, reporter Ahmad Al-Helo was hit to death in a different strike. So the Gazan media office has registered 217 journalists killed since October of 2023. In addition, the Israeli army targeted a Tuva complex comprising a prayer room and a medical clinic in northern Jabalia, which led to 15 fatal victims, including 11 children and women. Meanwhile, the Israeli forces denied accountability, accusing Palestine of inflating death tolls. Regardless, most media outlets assure the fact-checking of the massacres. In other topics, protests demanding the dismissal of Abel Hamid Dabba, the head of the Government of National Accord, continue in Libya amid intensified clashes and a wave of violence over the past year. On Wednesday night, a crowd gathered around the government office in Tripoli demanding the removal of the entire government. Despite the call to stop the clashes, protesters claimed that gunfire broke out in several areas of the city. Since the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, Libya has been plagued by violence and divided into two governments, one backed by the UN in Tripoli and the other supported by the House of Representatives in Benghazi. Now we have a short break coming up, but first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. The Colombian Senate rejected on Wednesday the government's proposed popular consultation, an initiative aimed at promoting the labor reform. With 49 votes against and 47 in favor, the Senate plenary rejected the initiative of Gustavo Petro's administration. In response, the Colombian head of state accused the body of committing a fraud and called on the People Workers Union to mobilize together with community action boards, youth committees, and indigenous movements. The proposed consultation addressed issues such as the reduction of the 8-hour working day, leave for health reasons, decent wages for farmers, and the end of outsourcing, among others. In this context, the President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, described as a disaster the collapse of the popular consultation in the Senate and blamed Uribismo for the use of political maneuvers to block the initiative. Through his X account, the Colombian head of state highlighted Uribismo sunk the labor reform in the 7th Commission, and as we revived it as a consultation, now it sinks the consultation to revive the same labor reform it sunk in the 7th Commission, a party disaster. The biggest disaster was that they had to take away the vote of more than a dozen legislators who were going to vote yes, and they had to sink the consultation with the vote of a convicted Uribista. Never in contemporary history had it happened that a lawmaker was taken out of jail to vote and sink the rights of the working people. That is a real disaster for the Senate and for democracy. The opprobrium they have committed must have cost a lot. Now they will try to sink again the bill I presented 2 years ago to Congress, but it is the people who must give their answer. They talk about defeats. The Senate has defeated itself by silencing the people's power, which is its very source, and by using a convict for a Pyrrhic victory that the people will sink into the history of infamy. In this regard, social organizations, indigenous groups, gender and cultural movements, and other sectors of Colombian society demonstrated on Wednesday night following the Senate's rejection of the popular consultation. Calls spread through social networks with peaceful demonstrations taking place in various communities. In the capital city of Bogotá, people gathered in parks in front of the city hall, while in Medellin, popular assemblies were held and protests were organized simultaneously. The actions, which continued until early Thursday morning, denounced fraud in the counting of Senate votes, as several parliamentarians claim that the order and agenda were altered arbitrarily and the voting process was disorganized. And the strike against the government-imposed insurance law in Panama has lasted 24 consecutive days, paralyzing key sectors such as education, construction, and food production. Workers and teachers' union have expressed their rejection through road blockades, marches, rallies, and work stoppages. Demonstrators point out that this government measure plunders the social security funds, hands over funds to private banks, raises the retirement age, and privatizes services. On tracks, accused the Molino government of violating freedom of association and seeking to arrest union leaders. The Metallurgical Workers Union in Argentina is carrying out a total indefinite strike in rejection of Javier Milei's government's declaration to eliminate tariffs on cell phone imports. The metal workers of Tierra del Fuego state that the measure is a direct response to the official announcement that negatively impact the local productive structure. They also warned that more than 6,000 people could lose their jobs. The union has called for a mobilization in the center of Rio Grande, where many industrial companies are located. And funeral ceremonies for former President José Pepe Mujica are continuing in the Legislative Palace in Montevideo, Uruguay. Thousands of people paid tribute to Mujica, accompanying the procession that stopped in front of the headquarters of the National Liberation Movement, the Broad Front, and the Popular Participation Movement. The procession concluded at the Legislative Palace. Authorities reported that more than 40 diplomatic delegations, including President Yamandu Orsi, paid their respects to the former president. On Thursday at 9 a.m. local time, access to the palace was reopened in anticipation of the arrival of other dignitaries. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverages, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. China announced on Thursday the decision to grant a visa-free policy for nationals of 5 Latin American countries, a measure reportedly aimed at further facilitating international travel.
To further facilitate cross-border travel, China decided to include more countries in its visa waiver program and extend the visa-free policy to ordinary passport holders from Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru and Uruguay on a trial basis from the 1st of June 2025 to May 31, 2026. Ordinary passport holders from the above-mentioned 5 countries can be exempted from visa to enter China and stay for no more than 30 days for business, tourism, family and friends visit, exchange and transit purposes. China remains committed to high-level opening up and will take more steps to make travel easier between China and other countries.
In other news, the Mexican government and the National Association of Self-Service and Department Stores, ANTAD, have signed a deal to gradually increase the marketing of products with the Made in Mexico brand in an effort to strengthen their domestic economy and reduce imports. On a private meeting at the National Palace, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum underscored the benefits of fostering goods made in the country. In turn, Diego Costillo, ANTAD's CEO, stated that such commitment was aimed at substituting imported products with national options. The deal is part of the Mexican Plan of Action, so it comes shortly after the renewal of the package against inflation and high prices, which seeks to maintain accessible prices in the basic food basket.
On the meeting, the Made in Mexico program was approved. All the most paramount chains affiliated with ANTAD were present, as well as other chains and online companies. Everything was working out very well. The commitment is to make grow both the product and manufacture with Mexican value in the upcoming years, and there will also be one in all stores.
Crecerlos y promoverlos desde las tiendas.
We are talking about percentages right now because you have to look at it by categories, what you can replace and what you cannot, but it is a great program linked to the Mexico Legacy Plan, and the commitment to boost the country's growth is all over the country.
And with 6 months to go until COP30, the 19th International Conference on Community-Based Adaptation to Climate Change is underway in Recife, Brazil. Our correspondent Brian Muir has more.
In a context of increasing climate change disasters around the world, the 19th Community-Based Adaptation to Climate Change Conference is underway in Recife. Brazil's National Union for People's Housing, or UNMP, is participating in the event to raise awareness of the potential of converting vacant buildings in downtown areas to social housing as a strategy for disaster risk mitigation.
I used to live in a settlement of plastic tarp and clapboard shacks. Whenever there were strong winds, the shacks would blow down. And when it rained a lot, it flooded. This gave us the feeling that we were going to die. So when everything got back to normal, all we could do is thank God and keep fighting.
An estimated 6.2 million Brazilian families lack access to dignified housing, but the census shows this deficit could be completely eliminated by converting thousands of abandoned government buildings in towns and cities across the country into social housing. Although the 1988 Constitution requires the government to do this, it usually only happens in cases of well-coordinated occupations putting pressure on local authorities.
Moving families who live on the periphery to downtown areas reduces risks caused by climate change. Because, first of all, the vacant buildings have already been built. All they need is a reform. And most importantly, you are relocating families from risk zones on hillsides, riverbanks and floodplains.
As places like Recife, the world's 18th most vulnerable city to climate change, deal with more frequent and more intense flooding disasters, social movements and housing activists are raising their voices in international spaces like CBA 19 to highlight how enabling the poor to move to downtown areas improves the quality of life.
No Instituto Polis, a gente fez uma pesquisa no passado.
The Polis Institute conducted a study last year that clearly demonstrates that converting empty buildings in central areas to social housing can promote climate change adaptation and mitigate damage, because it moves people closer to their employment, leisure and education.
CBA 19 will continue until May 16th. Brian Mir, teleSUR, Recife.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For teleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.